Well, first of all, thank you so much for coming.
Great to be here.
Yeah, I am a YouTuber, but I'm also a student at your university. I'm studying psychological behavioral sciences. I'm in my final year, and I basically wanted to sit down with you because I wanted to get to know the real Vice-Chancellor. I wanted to spill the tea on your experience here, but I really just want like a lot of people to understand that Cambridge is so accessible. And I think when they think of a Vice-Chancellor, they must think of like Hogwarts, something really scary, like
someone with a pointy
wand.
hat.
Someone really intense. When in reality, we're just normal people who sing on stages.
Exactly.
So I think the first question I want to ask you, Mr. Vice-Chancellor, Your Highness,
It's actually the Worshipful Vice-Chancellor.
The Worshipful.
Isn't that fantastic? It's called the Worshipful
So
Vice-Chancellor.
do you get that on your post, the Worshipful?
That's the formal name for this job, yeah.
I get like Abu Bakr, sometimes I get my name wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
So I kind of can relate.
I bet.
But I want to ask you, so you've got the role, Vice-Chancellor. Now, for those who don't know, what is a Vice-Chancellor? What is actually the role of it at Cambridge?
Well, I think a Vice-Chancellor is really meant to try to help the university establish a frame to move forward. So there's, really thinking about the future. How do we position ourselves well? That's involved in planning for the university, making academic decisions, obviously with large numbers of people across the university. You have to consult all the time. It's fundraising. That's a very important part of the job. Increasingly, we're in the middle of a £2 billion campaign, and so I have to travel around the world and try to encourage people to give lots of money to Cambridge.
My phone's cracked. So
you would like to have some of that. I know. Well, I don't get any of it either.
Where is it going to? Like, what charity?
It goes to creating new professorships, chairs. It goes to student support. We've just launched a big student support initiative. And it goes to creating new buildings, new facilities, supporting research, a whole range of activities across the university. So there's that. And then there's also having to deal with government. So government relations is part of the job. Alumni, making sure that alumni feel connected to the university. It's quite a diverse job.
It sounds quite stressful.
It can be. It can be stressful. Yeah, it can. But it's also really inspiring. I mean, when you're at a place like Cambridge where it's over, 800 years, actually changed the way we think about ourselves and think about the world. It's both a huge responsibility and a tremendous privilege.
I love to think, like, with the whole history part of it, I love to, think, yes, it's been there for 800 years, but I also like to think, we are, we're changing the history of Cambridge.
We're making the future.
And
absolutely.
we're a part of that, which is why I always view Cambridge.
Cambridge has changed over that time immeasurably. I mean, it started out just, a few monks studying medieval manuscripts, et cetera, and now we've got, business schools and people doing, the most cutting edge science. We've got students who are coming from much more diverse backgrounds than would have been true even 100 years ago.
Okay, now I don't want to leave. Before I was at my final year, I'm ready to leave, and now I'm just like...
Oh yeah, well you can come back.
I think I might have to. Okay, so with Harvard, you said that, it wasn't your typical trajectory to go to Harvard then. And I felt like it's very similar to me, like we don't get to Cambridge, maybe like London Met, not necessarily Cambridge, but my point was when you came here you might have felt a bit intimidated, like when you went to Harvard, and a lot of students, like even recently talking to freshers, a lot of them do feel intimidated. And there's this thing called like imposter syndrome, where you don't really feel like you fit in. One is, did that ever happen to you at Harvard, and how did you get over that if you did?
Sure it did, of course. I mean, I was coming from a big public high school, 1,800 students. It was not a place, it was a good school. I learned a lot, but it was totally different from the Harvard experience. And I arrived on the first day, my very wonderful parents drove me down from Montreal to Boston. And I walked into the room where I was going to live, and I discovered that my roommate was a guy whose father, grandfather, great-grandfather had all been at Harvard.
I know him.
Yeah, exactly. And actually, it was great. He turned out to be a really wonderful guy. And he said, you know what, I'm going over to register. Do you want to come with me? And I just leapt at it because I thought, my God, this guy actually knows something about this place. I knew nothing. And so I hooked onto him, and he sort of showed me around. But the bad part was I ran out. My parents, who'd driven me all the way down to Boston, I sort of said, Bye, gotta go, because I knew that I needed to figure out how this place worked. I called them later and apologized, but it's one of my long-term regrets. I felt I treated them badly on that.
Do you have any other, I don't want to use the word regrets, but do you have any other, when you look back at university, you're like, well, I wish I did this. I think for me, I wish I did other things other than plant tea as a society in my first year.
You know, I felt really lucky with all of my university experiences. So although absolutely I felt nervous, a bit scared, I felt that here. Even when I was, 24 years old, coming to do my PhD here, in some ways I would say I probably felt more nervous coming here than I did going to Harvard because, because the traditions are so strong and they're not always transparent. I'll be honest. There are things, passing port to the right at high, tables, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Which, how do you know? I didn't know that.
I didn't know what all these forks were for.
Exactly.
So and I'm Asian, so we eat with our hands. And I was just like having the bread, and someone was like, and I was like, am I going to go to jail? So it's very intense. I get that. Yes.
Yeah. So that part took a while, and the fact that you're not supposed to walk across the grass and some of the quads, all of this kind of stuff. I didn't know all of that either, and it took me a while to understand, frankly, not to take all of that too seriously. That it's, in a way, it's nice once you know how it all works and you can have fun with it. But boy, it doesn't define this place. It's not what Cambridge is about.
Yeah. But it's a shame that people think that it does. A lot of young students think that it does.
Yeah, absolutely. I can see that. But I think you just, you have to find the circle of people that you want to be with. And as I say, you just can't take all of that too seriously.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. Honestly, you don't understand how many times I have to be like, you can do it, you'll be fine. Because the reality is that that imposter syndrome, I think, is natural.
It is.
Once you realize that you deserve to be here, like anybody else, it's so fun.
And if you've gone through our extremely demanding admissions process, you deserve to be here. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's something that I'm trying to tell them a lot. So it's been a year now since you've had the role of Vice-Chancellor. You've enjoyed it, clearly. It's been quite intense. What's been your favourite moment, if you had to pin one or two, where you're like, I love my job?
Well, I had an incredible moment. I was asked to participate in the memorial service for Stephen Hawking when he died, which was held at Westminster Abbey. So I'm sitting in the stalls at Westminster Abbey, and I'm going up. I'm going to read a lesson. And the dean of Westminster Abbey started to mention all of the scientists who were buried in Westminster Abbey. There's the Poets' Corner where the writers are buried, and there's a Scientists' Corner. I didn't even know that. Yeah, there is. It's really neat. At some point, it's worth going and looking at. So there are all of these people over many, many generations who've made incredible contributions to our understanding of the world. And he listed all the names, and I realized every single one of them was a Cambridge person. Yeah. And it was a moment where I thought, wow, what a responsibility this is. Not just me, but in a sense, all of us who have this place given to us in our generation, and we have a responsibility to make sure that future generations inherit something that's as strong or stronger. That was a really incredible moment for me.
My heart is like, I actually don't want to leave now. You actually don't want to leave. So it's interesting you said that. The idea that how, we have a responsibility to help other people and pass that on. With me personally, I love Cambridge and I'm very grateful to be at university. But with me, I sometimes wonder, does Cambridge meet the needs of everyone?
Right.
And I think where I'm from, in Hackney, East London, my friends, we're a bit crazy. And I feel like at the same time, they're very hardworking.
Yes.
And sometimes I think, they work so hard, extremely hard. And like one of my best friends, when we did our A-levels, she was a single mother, she was looking after her child while doing her A-levels. And sometimes I think, she couldn't get the grades to get into Cambridge.
Right.
But she worked extremely hard.
Yes.
And I thought that's something that I see a lot is, I know that we are quite well in terms of how many state school students we get in, and it's constantly improving.
It is.
But sometimes I'm like, are we tackling, the students who feel like they could never be here. Right. And so pushing for diversity is quite a big thing for me. And I worked with the admissions officer during summer, which was really fun.
Great.
What I wanted to ask you is, in the sort of next 5 years, because I do honestly think that Cambridge is doing a lot.
It is.
And I think for me, the pinnacle point was the Black Men of Cambridge.
Yes.
When that came out, And I think that was before
Just
you
before I
hit.
came, yeah.
Like that was just absolutely massive. And
Yeah.
it took one student, Ore, who, did that, organised it, and it sort of blew up. And now it's like, Stormzy's getting involved
Exactly.
and ACS are doing well.
Yeah.
Where do you see Cambridge in like the next 5 years in terms of like widening participation and access for students?
Well, I think, I announced actually, I make a speech, the Vice-Chancellor makes a speech right at the beginning of October, and I announced a whole series of initiatives that we're undertaking around widening participation and increasing diversity.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we're working on with the colleges, I mean, there's a lot of details still to work out, but we want to try to have a kind of bridging program so that people who might just not feel completely prepared, or where they might just miss out on their offer just a tiny little bit, could come for a short time and get sort of boosted a little bit in their confidence. So that's a short-term program. We're also looking at a foundation year program.
Okay, similar to LMH.
Yeah, exactly, but much more extensive, really across the university and in many different colleges. And that's why it's complicated to organize, but we're working hard at that, and the colleges have been terrific in trying to understand how to make this function effectively. But there we're looking to the sort of person you're describing, someone who's really talented, who's very, very hardworking, but just for various reasons can't quite get to the level that would allow him or her to come here.
Yeah.
So that's a really important program. Another program that we're working on is just trying to find greater financial support for people. I mean, you talk about a single mother, right?
Yeah.
A single mother, okay, you can say she could come here and take all the loans, etc. But it just may be too scary to imagine taking on loans when you also are wondering about the situation of your children. So we're trying to look at support mechanisms for people who might be disinclined to come here and not take on loans. So we've announced a £500 million campaign to try to increase student support at the graduate level and the undergraduate level.
This phone is going to be fixed eventually with what it's got.
That's right.
That's actually amazing. Because my sixth form, B6 college, when I look back there, I do a lot of work. Every single holiday I get, I go there, just do a talk.
That's fantastic.
And it's just amazing to see, people inspire to want to apply to Cambridge. And I think you've explained why, it is an amazing university.
It is an amazing place. It's a remarkable place, and the opportunities here are endless, and therefore they should be available to people no matter their background.
So one of the last questions I have for you is, how do you then convince people to believe that? Because I can imagine a lot of people, or a few people, don't necessarily see that happening and feel like, if you work hard, you get the grades, you deserve it. That's one thing that I get a lot in the comments on YouTube videos is Cambridge isn't about, it's about grades, it's about being the smartest. How do you approach that?
Well, look, we can't deny that it's about doing well. I mean, to come here, you do have to be a very good student. It's hard work. I mean, I don't have to tell you. 8-week terms are very intense. The expectations around, writing essays for supervisions, really intense. And then, of course, you've got examinations that are also really intense. So it is a really demanding place. And that's why we're trying to be as, I think, tough-minded as possible in saying, no, it isn't for everybody. It is for people who are really talented, but it has to be for people who are really talented no matter where they're from. That's the key from my perspective. The other thing I'd say is it's really important that there be a whole diversity of educational opportunities for people. For some people, coming to a residential university is not even possible, right? They may have to live at home and they have to go to a local university and commute every day. That's great. That for some people, that's what they need, and they should have those opportunities. For other people, they may not even want a particularly academic experience. They may want a more hands-on experience. You have to have a diverse set of offerings 100%. In a country to appeal to the different talent bases that you've got. So we are looking at a certain kind of talent base. My passion, though, is to make sure that in looking for that talent base, everyone who has that talent feels that they should be able to come.
I think that is the thing, is the idea that Cambridge is amazing, but it is not for everyone. But that's not a bad thing.
It's not a bad thing,
I feel
exactly.
Like the world and the media makes out as if Cambridge is the only
route forward.
success.
And that's just ridiculous. I mean, in our society, happily, Look, it used to be true that if you went to Oxford and Cambridge and had been to one of the public schools, you know, your chances of being successful were 20 times, 100 times greater. That's not true anymore. Yes, it is true that when you come here, you have lots of opportunities when you graduate, but people coming from other institutions also have good opportunities.
I think that was, I think that's what it is. I'm proud. I'm proud of Cambridge. I feel like very recently I've seen a lot of change being made, and I feel like a big progression is going to happen.
Well, we're going to keep at it. And thank you for your contributions. It's amazing.
You're welcome.